It would be really great if you guys could take some time. We're not having time right now, but take some time and look at how Jesus does his teachings. Okay? I think it would be helpful. So, because I think he's across all culture and all time. So, anyway. Yeah, that would be good. That's awesome. All right. Fantastic. Moving on. Application. I'm going to grab my pen. Oops. All right. Application. Each lecture should include some sort of application. This is a call to action. And I want to actually really emphasize the word how. How are they going to take this information and apply it? So it's not just, you should apply this, but actually helping them, give them steps. Which again, this pastor on Sunday was amazing with, because he had a web, like a whole thing set up where you could go in and basically find out, how you can plug into helping the kids, either through you're gonna adopt or foster or help people who are doing that. And I thought, wow, he's got all the bases covered here. It was pretty amazing. So I was impressed, because a lot of times it's like, we need to be a force out there and helping these kids, but then there's no steps to actually how to do that. And so he was like very clear about how to do that. Now he has 10 years of experience, so that was helpful. But all right, different ways, different things to include in your application. Personal stories are really important. We are relational beings. We are touched by our stories. All right? I can't reiterate this enough. I've had one particular student who would never do personal story. He would never do a story. And so it was, but it was kind of a rebellion thing on him. Don't do that. Don't think that what you have gone through is not helping other people. You know that passage in 2 Corinthians about he's comforted you so that you can comfort others? Okay, that's the tip of the iceberg, because I think he's given you, and it's always with total humility and not like I know best because I've gone through this. That's not what I'm saying. It's my story. We're made for community, and we're made to rub shoulders with each other, and we learn from each other. That's what I'm trying to actually create here, that you learn from each other, okay? You're learning from me, but you're not just learning from me. You're learning from Charlotte, and you're learning from Ernie, and you're learning, all of you guys have something to give. The same thing within this. That's why I think personal stories are important. I feel like it's a connection point. And we've already talked about how that relationship is such a big deal. So this is just one added part of it. It kind of builds on it. So please use personal stories. If you're questioning whether your personal story is any good, talk to someone. If it's over the top, there's some people who share their personal stories and they're still working through stuff in it. And it doesn't mean that it's wrong to use it, but if there's the element of, it's like the guy who, it's kind of like they're saying, oh, I came out of drugs, but then they're not saying I've been delivered out of drugs. They're saying, yeah, I was a part of the drug culture, and they're bragging about it. Do you see the difference? So that would be the thing that I would be careful about. Why am I sharing this story? Is it out of humility that I did nothing and God did it? Or am I sharing the story that I'm so great? Okay, and you can tell. And as soon as anybody says a story about themselves that they're bragging, everybody shuts down. So it's kind of the heart behind what you're sharing. So I just want you to think about that when you do your personal stories. So be open to pray with people or have ministry times. Yep, this is important. If you feel like that's not your strength, bring people in that have that strength. I'm sure there are people in leadership here that are prayer warriors and love to pray with people. I would be one of those kind of people now. That's what I do there. So, yeah, just bring people in that have that gifting. So, show how your message applies to not just personally, individual, but maybe marriages or family or parenting or government or community or business or the church. We kind of get narrow sometimes in our application that I'm not saying that it's wrong. We do need those personal ones, but think outside the box. Think maybe this is actually beyond just a personal. Maybe it's beyond just this community. Maybe it's actually in this county or whatever. So think about things like that. So something that we were in Titus Project challenged with, that we needed to think outside of our personal. So if you can do that, great. It's not wrong if it's just personal. I'm just saying, see if you can go beyond. And then share practical ways in which they can apply the truths you have taught. Do not assume people will pick up on the implicit application of your message. Explicitly state it for them. And that's what I was telling you about this pastor. He was very explicit. I mean, he just basically said, everybody get on your phone. Even those people who are visiting. I'm like, oh, I'm not even from here. Get on your phone and look this up on this website and check this out. And anyway, I thought it was I thought it was brilliant. So, and the reason why we do that is because of these percentages that we see here. 5% of audiences are innovators. That means they are going to take this information and they're going to adapt it to many different areas. So, yeah, they're just going to see it, like how it fits, and it doesn't even just have to be in this one area. It can, I can do it that in here, and I can do that in here. So, which is awesome, but that's 5%. 15% are adapters, and they'll do what you're suggested in a few areas. So they'll do it within this area, but they'll maybe do it in that one and that one too. So, and then 80% are adopters, which means they'll only do what you have suggested. They won't go beyond the parameters. They don't actually see, I can apply this, or I can use this truth in this way, or all these ways, or many ways. So 80%. So I would say they're not critical thinking. They're not seeing beyond that. So they're just, for me, they're kind of probably just trying to survive through life. And so that's where they're at. So that's why you want to make it so explicit. You want to give them the how. And that's why I said how is a very important word. If this is approximately accurate, most of our audiences will not act on their own. They need simple action steps that they can adopt to apply truth. So, all right. Any questions? Anybody have any good applications they've heard that really meant something to them?
The 80% of adopters will only do what you have suggested. And I think, like so many times, we kind of skip that part, but that should be the part we should be kind of digging into, because that's 80% of application.
Right.
So
that's a lot.
Hit me.
Yeah.
That seems so high.
It does, but it's so true. I mean, I don't know how many times I've gone to church and they're saying something that's like, wow, it's powerful to me. And then I look at all the other people and we're talking later and they're like not saying anything about it. And I'm thinking, they didn't get it, or it just went right over their head.
But I'm guessing there's more adapters in Lila.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm thinking church.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's why we're here. Absolutely. That's a good point. Yeah, YWAM is full of more of the innovators and adapters. So.
Yeah, it's weird to me because I don't know. My personal view has always been, and I could definitely be wrong with this, just a good teaching or preaching is I should know by even before you go to the conclusion kind of what the application is.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not like
Yep.
if it's very specific, it's like maybe not, but I have like a general idea of where it's gonna go.
Totally.
So I just always thought like, oh, my body should just naturally lead to a pretty simple application, or like people should kind of get where I'm going. And so I don't know, maybe this like yes, but also no. So like you do need to like very clearly state that.
Yes, you do. Some people don't get it. And you know what, I think it's going to get worse because in the past we were taught critical thinking in school, and now it's getting more and more like other countries, which is more memorization, and it's not critical thinking. And it actually, with media and the internet and social media, it's like people are believing things now without thinking through the ramification of it. You know, like, does that really make sense? Is that logical? Like what we were talking about, the passion and this guy and so on. Well, it's because you're thinking critically. Wait a minute, this doesn't line up. This, you know. But a lot of people don't. They'll just take it. Okay. So, and that's more and more. It's getting more and more prevalent. All right, let's move on to E, summary and review. When you are finished with your main content, review, or have your students review, which I do a lot, because them saying it actually helps them know it. And wrap it up in a concise summary. Reiterate your main points. And just like I said earlier, think about a newscast. You're telling them what's going to happen. You tell them through the body, and then you review it again in the end so that they remember. It's a kind of a memory thing. So we have the opening, creating a need. We have overview, introducing the material. We have the body, which looks like many different ways you can do that. You have application, summary, and review. And then you have a closing. And I love this picture. It doesn't always feel like this, but it can. Your closing is the final impression you leave with your audience. It is your final opportunity to drive your message home. The conclusion lets your audience know you are just about finished and reinforces the central idea of your lecture. So, think about that goal statement. Remember we were talking about the goal statement? Like I had when I did Acts, and I said the Holy Spirit empowers ordinary people to preach the gospel and usher in the kingdom of God. That's my... So I was having them say that all the way along. So you want to make sure that they're pulling that out, and then what all the truth that is around that you want to make it memorable. Remember, your closing is what people will often remember the most. They will remember it the most. So, and I love this quote by Longfellow: "Great is the art of beginning, but greater the art of ending." So, all right. So, anyway, before we go back, any questions about what we just talked about, this whole creating your lecture or your teaching through all these basic parts? Is there any questions, Arnie?
Just trying to figure out how you would do this in a week's teaching, for example, which is basically multiple different teaching.
So you have to
sessions.
break it down actually to each topic or each time. Like,
Would you have an application with every single?
Yes. yes. So you actually bring application in more when you're doing in a week's teaching type of thing, especially with teaching the Bible. So when I do different books of the Bible that I'm teaching for a week, I will try to make sure, and it doesn't work all the time, but I will try to end each day that I'm teaching on some application point.
How would you, like, say for example, that one of your teaching segments is more of like a background or going through and laying out what things were, how would you then?
Well, that's a good point.
application
Yeah.
into- Because it's more information and background and how things are, and you're not necessarily Bible, or there might not be an application to take
Right.
from it because it's like
Well-
laying foundation.
Sure. I mean, there are ways to do it because I did it with Isaiah, and the historical background, I was talking about what their sin was. And then I was like, so have we done anything in that place? So I brought out the sins that they were doing, and then I kind of put it personal and said, so are we doing any of these sins? Have we, whatever, I can't remember the words and everything because that's been quite a few years, but anyway. So you can do it. It's like you pull out, and I'm going to say this because I don't want to say black and white has to be done. Pray. God, is there an application in this that I need to pull out? And he will give you questions and how to look at it. And it might be just a question in that point because your main application will be at the end, and that's when you're going into the hows. Okay? Especially for a long week. If they're having a how every single day, that would be actually a little heavy. I remember in my own SPS going, my application every week is the same. And I'm getting really tired. I should have been like, take note, Anna. This is what you got to do, Did you have that same problem?
With
Applications during SPS?
yeah,
It was like, same thing over and over, 9 months. Bah. So, and I'm sure, the same thing happens in the BCC and the whatever, but all these Bible courses. But anyway, I as a teacher, our responsibility is, Lord, is there something that you want to focus on an application in this particular part? And so that's why the prayer is so important. And I think it frees us up, because if he doesn't, don't worry about it. Okay? So I don't want you to feel like, oh my gosh, I didn't have an application. Because sometimes you don't. Sometimes you're just getting through the information, and that's okay. But you probably will use it later in the application because historical background always plays into it anyway. So, make sense?